because today I'm gonna discuss something which I wanted to cover for so long. This specific article piece, but also bigger themes in the industry and how the design is shaping up. And this piece again is, I think, very important, because if it wouldn't be, I wouldn't be even covering. So it kickstarted a lot of thoughts in a lot of different minds. Even on Design Squad community, I saw some contributions, some call-outs from people who are obviously thinking about these things. This is not a critique of the actual article or author, it's a critique of a theme more than anything, or thinking from design industry or communities. Would love for people to become more action-driven and action-focused instead of focused of like what else everyone else could be doing, or how can we share the responsibility? Because it's not really about sharing anymore. You're already sharing the responsibility. It's just how can you step up? What are you gonna sacrifice yourself to make the change for a greater good? That's what it's gonna come down to. Be the change you want to happen. I totally agree. Now, the actual principles, I think I'm gonna be critical on certain things where I think it's too aspirational or clearly states lack of agency or personal agencies. Make a bold decision that is controversial, definitely. Make a mistake as a result of a bold decision. This kind of probably contradicts a bit of what a lot of designers or what was written above, which was about experiments and agile and all the different frameworks. Failing fast, for example, has been labeled as one of the big pet peeves from a lot of different designers, and I kind of have to agree with that. Like, there has to be a good balance to it. Like, this shouldn't have been here, if you ask me, because it could be read in a lot of different factors. And if a PM who loves agile or just goes agile without pausing or slowing down where needed, it's gonna be just confirming of what we want. Challenge conventional wisdom, that doesn't have to be said, but I would say challenge everything, especially your own ideas as a designer. Nothing is gonna sink the ship quicker than, again, steaming and believing the stuff you tell yourself, looking for those kind of proving points around you. Challenge authority that preaches conventional wisdom, challenge everything, challenge hierarchy that perpetuates conventional wisdom. I agree with that, at least to some extent. Design is currently positioned to follow. Design is commonly part of a product family. So even if you have heads of design, they typically, or in a lot of cases, report to still product leadership. So you always follow someone else, and to be effective, you have to be, if you want to lead, you have to be a follower too, because otherwise you're going to lead to the objectives which are not going to align with the business, and you're going to just be pushed out at some point. It's inevitable as well. That's where a lot of the designers who choose to lead, they have to do it right, otherwise they're going to alienate themselves. Ignore the committee and need to converge. I agree to an extent, but I also disagree, because that's how, again, you might be pushed aside as a designer and become ineffective if all you do is really just go solo or ignore the need for a lot of ideas to come together. The issues are always the opposites. Like, convergence happens no matter what. Someone is going to make a decision for you. And how do you drive the committee? How do you guide the people, take them on a journey? So I would kind of challenge that too, but to an extent I also agree. Decide who your clients are and aren't. Totally agreed. Be a CEO of your own career. If you haven't already, you need to start thinking of yourself as a company, as a business partner to some other company, and self-respect in a way, so you don't get laid off. And if you do, you're actually gonna be okay, because you're gonna figure out how to sustain yourself as a company, basically. Ignore clients that aren't. It's all about education too. You cannot just ignore, you cannot just shut the doors, you cannot just say, too bad. Design has always been educational, always had responsibility to onboard someone who is not a designer, because it's an alien craft, especially UX design. It takes so much work to get good at. It takes years to master and learn. And as such, you have to employ empathy for others. You cannot ignore those who don't get it. You have to come up with a toolkit so people get it. Cultivate clients if none exists. That's, probably a freelancing bias of the author, I would presume. Be a generalist and ignore your job title, or be a specialist who specializes in being a generalist. Agreed on both. Design things from scratch and build them yourself from scratch. It's agency which is too specific or too, self-oriented. If we're talking about specifically UX design, not just design as a bigger, this like overarching theme of disciplines and specialties, UX does require you to design for others and with others. There is no way, because this is about the user. You could be the user, but when you're gonna design it for yourself and it has no commercial traction, like you have to be able to zoom out and work with the variables and constraints. Build them yourself from scratch is admirable. I think that's good. You should try to broaden your skill set anyways. Design things that no one wants yet. This is arguably something which contradicts the first principle, which is what got us to this state. Literally, this whole article, and I guess probably the biggest critique of all of this is gonna be this thing. Designing things that no one wants yet is great thing if you know that this is just an experiment, but then it creates this reaffirmation loop where you can just do it continuously again and again and again, and you don't have to do anything better. And I know some designers are rebels at heart, and probably most of them, and as such we want to just do it, but when they complain, then everyone else is doing the same, that they just want to do it some ways. Hypocritical in a way statement, or hypocritical principle. Kind of need to realize that you cannot have double measures. You cannot expect of someone else not to design things of what they want without including designers, let's say, or just prototype shit out and push it. But then yourself be like, oh, but for me it works. I should be able to explore and diverge. And you as a team, as a UX capability, as a tech capability, as a product family, as a company should be able to do this within reason. And lastly, design freely and think freely, I think is a bit too aspirational again, unless you are again just, I don't want to say just a designer who wants to express things visually, but this is more about the art than design to me. Falling back from the point I made earlier. As a junior designer, I tend to emphasize aesthetics over problem solving. Any tips on how to overcome this? Think about the problem more, frame the problem more, spend more time problem solving, delay the visualization, forget about it, pause it. You need to get into the habit to basically not do it until you need to do it. And it's easy to just prototype quickly. Sometimes you have to, obviously, if it's very small challenge or small problem, why the hell not prototype? If it's safe, if it's certain, if you don't have anything to lose, if the risk is small, just prototype it, visualize it, who the hell cares? The next thing which I want to leave, how I would express those principles. And this is less about what we discussed or what's written in the article, but if I would summarize the challenges and problems, I would ask every designer to, one, be the change and drive the change and manage the change. Change management is a skill set which is overlooked by so many designers. It's extremely hard and it takes so much time, but it's kind of like systemic or critical thinking. Like once you understand the basics, you are gonna become unstoppable and nobody's gonna make you vanish. Put the users first, doesn't have to be said. But what lacked in that write-up was anything to do with the user. Again, it was talking about standardization and bland design and bits where we just basically create systems to make good but not great stuff. Missing bit is the user. User is the king. We're making stuff for user, not for making of the art or for design as expression of stuff. Start earlier, it doesn't have to be said. Didn't see anything in that article, but you must figure out how to get involved earlier. That should be a mission for any design leader or designer. That's where we're missing a lot of those things, and a lot of those issues described before is because of that. We start too late. Decouple art from design and de-romanticize the job. Design is a job. A good book about this I pulled up is Design is a Job by Mike Monteiro. It puts it very well, and as such you cannot just think of yourself as an artist, as someone who's just goes and sprinkles rainbows and stuff like that and makes magic happen. You're gonna make magic happen working with others within the constraints. That's what design is. It's always has been. Prioritize divergence, super important. I know the author of the article rightfully said that we shouldn't converge too early or focus too much on convergence, but again, starting earlier and prioritizing divergence is very important, because that's also diversity, inclusivity of ideas, of people, of skill sets, of backgrounds, experiences, a lot of systematic type of variables and things of that nature. Divergence is king for UX or design. If you don't diverge, You are just gonna do the same exact patterns again and again. You're just gonna take a design system, push some buttons and patterns and whatever components and call it a day. That's what immediate convergence means. The opposite is obviously the good stuff. Stand for something and manage up. This is important and comes from agency. I didn't see, again, from that article, any self-reflection or like, what's the sacrifice I'm gonna make? Or if I even read that article, what is the sacrifice I'm expected to make? Instead of saying everybody should, what am I gonna do for this? You have to stand for something and draw a line and draw it quite firmly. You have to define your principles and what matters to you. If it's that we're gonna always think about users, start earlier, decouple art from design, this is who you are as a designer, as a leader, as someone who's gonna make the change. But you need to stand for something, otherwise you're gonna fall for everything. And when managing up means that, again, 360, your frustrations could be shared with the peers. I could share my frustrations with you on a chat, and I could literally just say, hey, this doesn't work, that doesn't work, this doesn't work. But I hope you are taking what I'm saying today not from that perspective, because I hate it. Like, I hate when everything is about problems. And I know we're really good at identifying problems and framing it. But at some point, we need to step up and manage the change. We need to basically think about solutions. And nobody's going to listen to you if you only bring problems. People who are, let's say, above you care about where are we actually going to take agency to change something. Critical. And as such, I hope you're going to take from this live stream as well, that think about the stuff which you specifically, or me specifically, what are we together individually gonna take alone and sacrifice in order to improve things, to not vanish. And lastly, very pragmatic, very practical, is create better frameworks. We cannot keep calling out agile design thinking, design sprints, like what else could I call out? Like numerous of frameworks, methodologies, stuff which frustrates people to no end. We cannot keep telling that it's garbage because everything has a place. Every framework is brilliant framework at some point. I love design sprints and I ran such an awesome design framework. God damn it. It kind of boils my blood when I talk about it because I'm super excited. In certain scenarios, design sprints are amazing. Like irreplaceable, especially if you're time bound. Every framework, every goddamn method is amazing. And even eye tracking for user testing. A lot of issues with that in certain scenarios can be brilliant. And as such, you need to, if you're super frustrated and you think nothing works and you're so unique, you need to figure out how to create new frameworks. What else can we do? For example, the other day, I saw this Stingray UX double diamond. Someone took the double diamond, likely not a designer, and they basically said, this is how it should look like if we design for AI and generative AI experiences. An example. Now, if you are not going to create a framework for generative AI or how it should be done, someone else is going to make it for you, and then you're going to follow. And as such, my call to action here, or principle, is you have to take ownership and create better frameworks. It doesn't matter how senior you are or how junior you are, start thinking about the tooling which would basically enable teams to do better. Let's not just think about issues. We have too many issues. We need to start framing and thinking about solutions. And that's really the principles. I think the morphing roles, I'll basically schedule a next session sometime.